Hello, I'm your host, Nate Scheer, and welcome to the show. This is Mind Force, the podcast for love, life, and learning, where your mind matters. Still broadcasting from the lovely Killeen, Texas, so please excuse the hotel room. But as Josh can attest, when an opportunity comes, you take it, or it'll pass you by. Today we have
Absolutely.
Josh White, the host of HeroFront Podcast, and this episode is all about podcasting. Welcome, Josh.
Hey man, I'm so happy to be here because me being here means you have a podcast, right? And I'm not usually a guest, and to be on yours, especially after we talked about it so long ago, and now we're here actually having an episode. It's amazing. So super proud of you, and super happy that you're doing what you're doing. You're making the world a better place.
Absolutely. Thanks for saying that. I got to drop the story real quick, not to take up too much time, but I got to give two shout outs. One, Chanel Meadow. She kind of pushed me off the ledge. She has her own dog treat business, and she was like, why not? So that was kind of getting pushed off the ledge. But then as I was falling, I got a hold of Josh. I didn't think he'd really pick up. He's a big, professional, successful podcaster, but still a nice, humble human being, and took my call all the way around the world, pulled up his 10 top most listened to episodes, which was really powerful to me. I was thinking you have to have the biggest star. You got to have the Secretary of the Air Force. You got to have some huge person. You got to have the biggest chief or whatnot. And then Josh on the spot pulled up the top 10 and was like, it's all about the story. And so that was just so powerful to me. And so even though I was off the ledge, I knew that it would be okay, because the story of the people that is on the show is what's important, not the name, the rank on the shoulder, but really the story. So that's awesome. Okay, we're going to move into the who, what, why. Who are you? What do you do? And why are you here?
So I'm Josh White from the HeroFront Podcast, also an airman serving in the Air Force, been in 19 years, had a multitude of career fields, aerospace ground equipment, public health, commander's exec, and military funeral honors. And why I'm here, and this is a broad question, so I could be way off on what you're looking for, but and why I'm here is to, man, have a great conversation with you about whatever you want to talk about, man. I'm down for anything.
Absolutely. We're going to go into some podcasting. Maybe we'll have to do another episode if I can squeeze another one in October. I know you're busy, but the focus of the podcast is mental health. But I do want to jump into a lot of podcasting here. So we're going to move into the warm-up, kind of get some lighthearted questions, get this going. If you could describe yourself in 3 words, what would they be?
Oh, God. In 3 words, I'd say...
Tenawesome.
Yeah, I'm just gonna start cheating and just putting them together like that, just making them up. No, I would say comedic, and I say comedic because I had a therapist once tell me, if you can't laugh at yourself, then you're truly lost. And I was like, you know what? That's actually spot on. So that'd be my first one. My second one would probably be driven, and I say driven because I love having purpose in my life. The times that I didn't have purpose in my life, I almost lost my life. So I'd say driven's the second one. And third would be transparent. And I'm transparent now because I want to share stories, your story, my story, but I never want someone to look at me and assume that it was all easy, right? I want people to know that happiness and purpose is something you have to work for, but it is possible. And so that would be my third one.
That's awesome. That's a super powerful one. I always see the meme, and it's in different ways, but it's the iceberg, and it shows the success at the top of that iceberg, but then all the hard work down below. And so it is sometimes frustrating when people are like, oh, must be nice. Like, oh, no, not must be nice. It worked and, got a lot of things, long nights, early mornings, or whatever it may be. So next question is, which individual or individuals have had the most impact on your life?
I'd probably say it'd have to be my dad, first and foremost. So I'm 4th generation Air Force, right? So this has been a part of my family and life since I can remember. But my dad raised me as a single father for a time. And, he was an airman. kind of a rags to riches story. He was just a poor kid out of West Virginia, ended up enlisting, traveling the world, and he ended up becoming an officer. He was also a 12 Outstanding Airman of the Year. A story that I heard time and time again growing up is like he was this superhero that just changed his whole life. And my career, took a different path where it was, full of trauma and struggles and really trying to figure out my place in the world. Of course, I never felt like I was living up to like what my dad accomplished, which that kind of stung extra. But I have to say, it all kind of culminated to me winning that exact same award, the same story that I heard my whole childhood when I was the same rank he was when he won it. As a matter of fact, on my coin rack is like his name for 12 Outstanding Airman of the Year like fell off his plaque because it's been so long. So I took that and it's on my coin rack back there.
That's awesome. And he's the first episode, so extra meaning on that one too.
He's the very first episode.
What's a fun or quirky fact about yourself that many do not know?
I would say that I was a pro Halo 3 player.
Bumper jumper?
Oh, I had bumper jumper.
Ooh.
Yeah. I didn't like it at first, but it grew on me.
Dang, I've heard that's how you know someone's pro.
Yeah, I did play bumper jumper. No, I was more of an online warrior because when this pro status happened, I was playing from Japan online. It was 3 airmen and 1 Marine, and all of us were top 20 players worldwide. One of us was number 2, second, online. So we're playing all these online tournaments, and I gotta say, like, out of all like the tough times I had at Kadena, Halo 3 with the boys kind of saved me. That was kind of that's all I had. So that's going to be a part of my life forever. But if I'll throw a little treat to the listeners here. So I lost all the footage, right? I used to have montages and all this stuff. Lost my account. I had a team montage. He lost the account. Well, I hit the guy up who made the team montage and I had him send it to me. So I re-uploaded it, right?
Oh.
So it's back on there. So if you search Halo 3 Team Departing Sin, you will see our team montage from back in 2008 when we were just killing it.
Oh, that's awesome. I can't wait to watch it. It's funny you mentioned that. I remember in tech school in the dorms, we had the LAN cable running down the hallways so we could, not screen peek and all that. LAN parties were, as nerdy as they were super fun.
That's the most fun.
Right? It's kind of a bummer you don't get to hang out in the same room anymore. Everyone's just at home. It's not the same.
Yeah, I stopped playing first-person shooters because it just taps into this addictive side of my brain, so I just had to let it go. But when I did play it, the LAN parties were... I started in tech school as well, and I gotta say, Halo 2, I started on Halo 2 in tech school, and that was the first thing I was ever good at in my entire life.
That's awesome. That's how you know
truly,
you made it.
Truly one of the best. And so that's what drew me to it, the teamwork, the communication, the friendships that you make. And that I was actually good at something. I was making these videos and people liked it. And I was like, wow, like I've never had that before until that game.
That's awesome. Were you so good it wasn't fun to just like beat your friends, or?
It was always fun. It never got old to beat anybody.
It's always fun to win.
It is. There's always trash talk constantly. Oh. So you're either really happy and laughing or you're really mad about to throw your controllers. It's either one or the other.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, earlier you mentioned comedic, so I'd like to hear a funny story from your personal life. Hopefully BMT. No, just kidding.
I did see some stuff from BMT that was kind of wild. Did. I went through it the wild time of BMT. Like I joined... Year? July of that's when I joined. So around July, August, that time frame, BMT was in the news shortly after that. I was there when it was dangerous, and I saw some stuff too. I went through the gauntlet, but I won't tell those stories. The story I will tell, though, a funny story, is how I almost got kicked out of my second base after my first weekend out. So I get to Kadena Air Base. I'm aerospace ground equipment. I just came from Guam. Guam was a piece of cake. We simulated everything. We drank, we barbecued. We did everything but work. I get to Kadena, totally different story. They're like, we're on 12s. Screw your feelings. I don't care what you got going on. Like, you're on nights, you're on 12s. But I don't care. Shut up. Go do that. Go work. The mission was everything. And I was like, wow, this is really different. And so this guy, he was an older airman, which was a little bit more rare back then. A little bit older airman. And he was like, hey, man, I'm going to show you the ropes. I'm going to show you around. Like, I got a skyline. We're going to hop in my car. I'll take you out. This is my first weekend. So I was like, heck yeah. What I didn't know is like this guy was getting kicked out. Like, he was already like done. Like, he had nothing to lose. I didn't know that. No one warned me about this guy. Okay. He takes me out. I know there's a curfew, right? I'm not terrified of the curfew yet because I don't really know how bad breaking that curfew is. But the reality is it's really serious. And if you're an airman and you break that curfew, they get kicked out. You just don't see them again, right? They're doing like base details until they're separated. Okay. This is serious. And the party town was Gate 2 Street. It was called Gate 2, and that whole street was nothing but bars. It was complete chaos. It was like Pinocchio when he turns into a donkey. It felt like that. Anyways, so I go out with this guy, and I'm in Japan. I'm drinking. I'm at a karaoke bar, which is like normal there, but at the time I'm like, that's kind of weird, but it kind of grew on me. There's a lot of Marines getting drunk, lots of girls there. I'm a single airman at the time, so I'm like, hey, first weekend out, like full send. And there's these two Japanese girls who clearly, wanted to hang out with some American dudes. And I was like, hey, that's me. So me and his name's Jeremy, we talked to these two girls. And the one that I talked to, I hit it off with. Like, it was going great. The one he talked to completely despised him. He's a complete idiot. He was way too drunk. And he goofed it. Well, he starts getting mad at me because mine's going well, right? So like he starts trying to like interfere with me, and he's getting, angry with me, and I'm like, dude, is this guy like unstable or something? Like, why are you yelling at me? Like, you asked me to come with you. This is crazy. Well, it's getting close to the curfew. Again, I'm not used to paying attention to the time, but I noticed everyone's gone at some point, right? No one's in there but like us four. And I'm like, and the bartender's like, hey, if you're about to break curfew, like you should probably get in a taxi. And I'm like, dude, oh my God, like what'll happen? Like, oh, you get kicked out. I'm like, and he's like, I don't care. I'm already getting kicked out. F this, F the Air Force. I'm like, oh no, what have I done? It's my first weekend. No one even knows me. We go outside. He's like, chill, we're going to get in a taxi. We'll get on base. I'm about to get in a taxi, and I look down at the gate at the entrance. It's kind of far off. It's like 300 yards down. And I see all these dudes, like chiefs and senior NCOs and blues, like coming onto Gate 2 Street. I'm like, what is that? They're like, oh, yeah, they come out here and bust people, and they get kicked out. And I'm like, so they're looking for us. They're looking for airmen. That's what they're doing. He's like, yeah, that's what they're doing. And I was like, well, we can't go now. It's too late. Like, what? I was like, we got to run, bro. I was like, I am not going down like this. I am not losing my career because of this idiot dragged me out here and screwed up my night. I'm like, we got to go. So I grab him. We run away. Right? We're running through the streets. It's pitch black. I'm like, can we get a hotel? Everything closes there. Like, it's silent. Everything's closed. You can't. I'm like, what are we going to do? Like, it's 12. When can I go back on base? 5, 6? Like, where do we sleep? Right. Yeah. Meanwhile, he has just lost his mind. I mean, he is so gone that he's like looking for his ex-girlfriend's house to like yell at her. And I'm like, bro, where does she live? Like, this is a big island. Like, does she live on Gate 2 Street? Well, if not, then you're stop looking for her house. But that's how gone this guy was. So how I get through it, I find a ladder that goes up to a roof of a building. Mind you, I'm also been drinking, so I'm willing to like really hide in anywhere I can. I'm feeling brave. We climb the ladder. We go all the way up in this like 3-story building on the roof. I can't really see, but I noticed there's like this garden in the middle of this area. So we go into the garden on top of this roof, and he just blacks out. I'm like, thank God. Like, go to sleep. So I just try to make myself comfortable. I'm just standing guard. hours and hours go by, the sun starts to come out, and I start to realize that we're on someone's property, right? Like, this garden was central to a bunch of apartments that went around it. And that was kind of like their backyard of sorts, right? They all shared that common area. Now, I don't know if you've ever been to Kadena, but Americans breaking into Japanese people's houses on accident because they're drunk happens every weekend. And trust me, you don't want to be that guy. Okay. And I'm hiding in the bushes. There's Japanese dudes smoking cigarettes in the morning. I'm hiding in the freaking bushes thinking, how is this my life right now? Like, if this guy sees me, an American, hiding in his bushes at 5 a.m., that's an international incident. Like, this is going to go so south. So I try to keep him quiet. News. Right. Well, I find a time where he starts to wake up and the people didn't look like they were watching. We split. We get down the ladder, get in a taxi, get back on base. And I was like, bro, I am never hanging out with you again. Ever again. You freaking psycho. And I did not get kicked out. I did not get caught. And that is the story.
That's awesome. Okay. That is wild.
You weren't expecting that, were you?
No, I thought it was going to be funny, slightly embarrassing, like not,
it kind of was all that.
But...
Yeah. I mean, I feel like the statute of limitations is gone. It was 2008. So, I'm sharing that story.
You are absolutely cleared.
Yeah.
Okay. The last question we have in the warm up. If you could have dinner with any historical figure, who would it be and why?
I've been asked that before and I give a different answer every time. I don't know how anyone would not pick Jesus. I just feel like that would just answer. I feel like, but if you did pick Jesus, it'd probably like collapse the universe or something. Like, that's not supposed to happen. You probably like accidentally, oh snap. Okay, I'm gonna stick with my answer. I'd pick Jesus. I'd be taking a risk at ending it all because that should not happen, in the plan. But I would talk to Jesus because I was just in Israel not too long ago.
Got your first tattoo?
It wasn't my first. It was probably like my fifth. But I don't know if you can.
Most meaningful.
So yeah, I got to be an embedded medic with the IDF. Of course, my heart goes out to them now because I actually literally know these people, worked with them, saw, how kind they were and how much they cared about their country. And, but that was just an absolutely life-changing moment. I thought about Jesus a lot during that trip because, we went through the desert. There's a crazy terrain. It's like jungle to desert to ocean. Like it's a wild terrain over there. But I got to go to the Dead Sea in Masada, which is a famous Jewish temple up on a mountain. And on that drive, I was looking out at the desert and I was thinking, like, because the path that Jesus walked was like all over the place. It was like hundreds of miles. And I was like, how did one dude walking around this desert, like, because it's vast, change the whole world forever? How is that even possible? Like, that is just crazy. When you're there and you see it. Yeah. It's kind of hard to wrap your head around how one person could change the world forever that long ago.
And kind of makes it real because I feel like I've definitely never been, but I feel like there's one thing about reading a book, like, oh yeah, this guy in this book. But like you're saying, you're looking down and seeing the routes and things like that. Like that has to make it real, no matter what you believe. Like that's pretty powerful and kind of makes it more concrete, which is super cool.
Definitely. So yeah, that's who I'd pick just because, for obvious reasons.
So I was curious, speaking of meeting people, not that it was necessarily dinner, but how was meeting Simon Sinek?
So I got to have breakfast with him. And the reason that happened was because I was a 12 Outstanding Airman of the Year. That was like a gift to these like award winners, was that, he came to Whiteman to do talk to a bunch of people. He went all over the base, but like we specifically got to have a breakfast with him. And I thought the guy was a genius. Like, I mean, exactly like how he hits hard with like those little clips. Like he basically did that for like an entire week. Like he's awesome. Just he's an amazing man, and he's super humble, very approachable. I got him to film a video on my phone. I had a buddy who should have been there, but he was deployed. So I had him film a video to him saying he wishes he was there. He hopes he's safe. And literally did that for me on the spot. And then I sent that video to his name's Airman Monty, and he was like, "Oh my god!" I was like, "Bro, you owe me forever for that." Like,
That's awesome.
whenever I need you, you better be there because holy cow.
Yeah,
So
I would love to meet him. That'd be great.
yeah, he's got like an aura around him. Just a really cool dude. Like, I didn't want to stop hanging out with him. Like, I was always sad when like I had to like walk away. I just wanted to keep talking to him.
It's good when they're, nice and humble and approachable and things like that. Because I'd be worried that some of the people you think would be really cool, like The Rock, certain people were like, if they were not cool behind the scenes, it'd be so devastating.
It would be. Yeah. And some of them are like that, unfortunately.
Okay, we're going to move into the interview, a little more heavier topics, but I want to give you a chance to ask me a question.
To ask you a question. Okay. I guess a great question would be, I don't think you ever really told me the purpose behind why this platform, this podcast meant so much to you to put all this time and effort into actually starting it and following through with it. So I'd like to know where that comes from.
Absolutely. I touched on it briefly in the pilot episode, but I lost my grandma to mental health. And she was one of the nicest, most outgoing, helpful people I've ever met in my life. And so to see that she was struggling with such darkness and didn't feel that she had an outlet to be able to have a conversation, to ask for help. All the grandkids are going to her funeral just completely confused, like what just happened. And then come to find out she would lay in bed for a week or two at a time in these deep depressive states that we never knew. But if, we passed somebody on the side of the road, she would jump out. And even if she didn't know how to fix a tire, she would try. She would talk to everyone at the grocery store. And so it bums me out that my kids won't get to meet her and all those things. I have a whole, slew of emotions that go with that. But one of the darkest parts of that for me is the light that she shined everywhere she went is not going to be there anymore. All those rooms, all those people she'd pass, that's just gone, like for years and years, for not really a good reason, So my point, the time and effort that goes into this, if somebody hears a story from you or me or a guest, it's not me making it happen. It's a connection to, either the guest or something they hear. And if just one person, chooses to make a different decision, have a conversation, go to the chaplain, call 988, go through one of those things, the hours that are put into it are just minuscule to saving a single person. So.
Wow. That's heavy, man. Thanks for sharing that. And I will say, just what struck me while you were explaining it is you were kind of mentioning a lot of like the positivity she brought that's no longer in the world. I would argue to say you've kind of it's living through you now. I know that's not the best outcome, obviously, right? But I would argue to say it's the positivity's still there. It's just been handed off to you, and you're clearly doing it now.
Ooh, okay. Yeah,
well,
we're gonna move right into.
I'm interviewing you.
Okay, so to push the spotlight back over to you, near-death experience. What happened, and what did you learn?
Okay, near-death experience was myocarditis brought on by the flu mist vaccine. This is before vaccines were all like controversial. If there's one that should have been controversial, it's the flu mist. Okay? Because we don't use it anymore, and there's a reason for that, right? But it shouldn't have almost killed a healthy male in his early 20s, right? Like, if it's going to kill anyone, it's going to be someone too young or too old or someone that is pregnant, shouldn't get it. A lot of those high-risk factor type of folks, but not a 23-year-old dude, right? Like, that should not hurt that person at all. But it almost killed me. And it wasn't just, I would argue to say it wasn't just the flu mist, right? It was that internally, I basically stopped wanting to be alive, right? I never thought about like hurting myself or anything, but, looking back and after all this time, I can reflect on that really dark time of my life. I did not want to be alive, and I was abusing alcohol religiously. I mean, every day, just trying to feel nothing, just trying to ignore everything. I was just so disappointed in myself, and how I felt like a failure. I was about to separate from the military. I was in a career that made me very unhappy. I had no money, tons of debt. I was an alcoholic. I had no school. So I didn't take advantage of any of the benefits that I could have easily had through being an airman. And my enlistment was coming up. Now I could either separate, worse than going home with my tail between my legs, a failure, right? Or re-enlist into something I hate and be miserable in the cycle continue. I was in a lose-lose. Like there was no, I was not looking forward to my future. I didn't want that future. I didn't want either one of those paths to exist. Therefore, I didn't want to exist. And so, I was prescribed Ambien, and I know you're not supposed to drink with that. Well, I still was, because really I was hoping that I could just go to sleep and not wake up. Like that, I would have been okay with that. Had no mentor, didn't know anyone, was isolating, just gaming, not wanting to get out and talk to anyone. And the more I isolated, like the deeper and farther I went down that really horrible path. Once I got that flu mist, I felt like I was having a heart attack. I thought something was really wrong with my heart, which was terrifying. I tried to go up a flight of stairs, collapsed. But being in maintenance with tough it out, I was even scared to bring it up because they were going to say no and poke fun at me and stuff. But after I fell down on the stairs, I was like, okay, something is serious. So I told them about, that my chest was hurting. Luckily, they took that seriously. Didn't give me a hard time or anything. I called the appointment line. They're like, yeah, you got to go to the ER. And I'm like, what? It's probably just a chest cold. They're like, nah, you got to go to the ER. I go to the ER. They hook up an EKG. They're like, yeah, you need to go to Kansas City. I'm like, wait, what? Why? According to this EKG, you could die. I'm like, what the? So I go from it just happens so fast. I swear, within a few hours, I'm in this hospital gown with all the stuff hooked to me in Kansas City with the doctor telling me family should fly out. This all happened within hours, of me showing up. And I'm just like, am I going to die right now? This is crazy. And so my dad did fly out. And it's one of those viruses that either kills you or goes away. I mean, there's really nothing in between. They just make you comfortable. I didn't know how viruses worked either. I didn't know. I was like, just give me antibiotics or something. They're like, no, what you have is. And I felt like a freak in there too, because everyone was really old except me in that ward. And so I had all these students coming by to interview me every day when I'm like, I could die and y'all are just questioning me for your freaking studies. This is crazy. But my dad came out, and I think my dad coming out saved my life, because I was, again, in such a dark place. I could have just died at that point. I could have just not made it, because I feel like because I internally didn't want to live, that probably dropped my immune system, and that I feel like the mind is a powerful thing, right? If you want to die, there's going to be physical consequences to that state of mind, right? But when my dad came out, I was just so relieved that I wasn't in that shop, and I was spending time with my dad, just me and him, and that was enough to make me want to live again, and ultimately is what I think saved my life. Although I was in this hospital, at least I got to hang out with him and we got quality time together, and I wasn't dealing with all that chaos that was driving me nuts and making me not want to live anymore. I got to get a break from that in a way.
Yeah, that makes sense. A little break, you were able to, focus on other things, and kind of that wake up moment. I feel like it reminds me of the guy, I missed him out at Kadena, but the guy that jumped off the Golden Gate Bridge and ended up surviving. He tells that story as soon as his hands left the railing, he was I regretted it, but it was too late at that point. So usually the wake up, or I guess closer to death, unfortunately. And it's like, maybe this could be real, which is sad that has to come to that. But I'm glad you got back on track and you're still here.
That wasn't my rock bottom.
Oh, you want to go down that road?
I just say that because I think it's an important message, because that rock bottom could be death, right? Like, I was waiting for a rock bottom to turn my life around. I think a lot of people feel that way. Like, well, something's got to give. Maybe I'm going to, get into an accident or hurt myself. Something's got to give for me to turn my life around, because I can't keep doing this, right? And I have to say, I had it all wrong. That did not turn my life around, right? Rock bottom, quote unquote, could be you passing away. There could be nothing negative to turn you around. That might not exist, right? For some. Because the problem's still there, right? Like, I got better, but guess what? All those problems I told you about, all those worries I had, were still there. So you can imagine my disappointment when I swore I'd never drink again. I'm good. I had all this convalescent leave. I'm good. I'm clear. And then a week after being back at work, I'm throwing up in my sleep from drinking. You could imagine how much I hated myself in that moment. That I can't, like, if I can't even listen to my own standards I set for myself, if I can't even follow that, you end up hating yourself.
It's almost worse the second time.
Yeah, with every misstep, when you swear something's never going to happen again, you lose respect for yourself, and you just hate yourself, over time, because you let yourself down over and over and over again. And so there's a lot that happened between then and now, because you're talking, that was like 2010, around that time. But the message that I wanted to pass, though, is that I was waiting for a rock bottom. That is the wrong way to look at it. I ended up changing through people who cared about me, actually connecting with people and having people support me and have my back in building like really meaningful relationships that led to me getting a lot of success and empowerment and encouragement and taking chances on myself. It was kind of a domino effect of positivity and positive people in my life. So it was actually, putting things in my life slowly, including habits and getting out of my comfort zone and being vulnerable and having meaningful conversations, to getting this job, which gets you that job, which, it just went up and up and up, when the whole time I thought I had to go down, down, down to change, if that makes sense. So that's why I told that story. Yeah, I was thinking of it the opposite way, and I just didn't realize I had to go up. It would just take a while. It would be baby steps, but eventually I was a totally different person in a totally different life.
So you have a good friend that has an example. I forget exactly what it's called, like the 2-inch domino or something.
The 2-inch decision.
What's his name? Oh, there it is.
Sully.
That's a great example. You got to start with the little stuff.
Yeah, he talks about he hands out dominoes. He's always got dominoes on him to hand out and to tell stories like as they come up. Like he can take any inanimate object and create a lesson around it. It's unbelievable. But yeah, his 2-inch decision is basically like that little domino knocks over something bigger, which knocks over something bigger. Eventually it can knock over like the biggest building in the world in a much shorter time than you realize, right? It doesn't take a million of those steps. It's like 10 to 12 when it's knocking down huge buildings. And the whole point of it is those little steps is what changes your life. It's not one event. It's not one habit. It's micro decisions that cumulatively add up over time that put you in a different place in life. It's that consistency, even with the little things. And a lot of people, they don't follow through on the little things. They don't think it matters. They're waiting for maybe that big thing, that big opportunity, that big change. And that stuff doesn't stick. You need the consistency. You need those 2-inch decisions, and that will change your trajectory over time. So shout out to Sully.
Absolutely. That's good. Good advice. I hope someone takes that and makes that 2-inch decision. So I want to ask you some questions about the podcast. How did you come up with the artwork, the name, and the concept of the Hero's Gauntlet?
Okay, so the name is a double meaning. One of the meanings is everyone has a hero inside, and through meaningful conversation, I try to bring that to the front lines of our life. So it's the idea that everyone has it in them to be great. It's in all of us. And I want to help people find that, because I found that in me when I thought it was impossible. I thought I was worthless, so I'm trying to help people find that inner hero, remind them that it's there, and bring it to the front of their life, right? So that's kind of the spiritual meaning of it. The literal meaning of it is it's actually named after the honor guard. They look like heroes at the front of every ceremony and parade. The logo is a play off the Hap Arnold symbol, which is on the honor guardsmen's hats. Yeah, no one's actually asked me that before. So I'm glad you did.
And the gauntlet.
The Hero's Gauntlet. So I actually stole that from someone.
Oh.
When you're creating content, like, there's certain things that inspire you that you want to incorporate. Most of the stuff that I do or anyone does is things that they've seen somewhere else, and they take bits and pieces of that and kind of put it together, right? I mean, content is meant to inspire you into action. So it makes sense that there's certain things that you'd want to adapt to. But I used to save random questions for the end. Most people don't listen to up to the end of a podcast. They'll listen to bits and pieces throughout, but most never listen straight through to the end, unfortunately. And I would ask these really good questions at the end, and I was like, man, after I heard that statistic, I was like, I can't do it at the very end. Like that, no one's even listening to that, potentially. And so there's this guy named Trip Bodenheimer. He's a master sergeant. He runs the Shadows podcast. I listened to his because he was another airman podcaster like me. And he started like 3 months before me. So we started right around the same time. And he asked him at the very front, right out the front. And I was like, man, I like that. Like, that's actually more engaging to me. And so I took that philosophy from him, and I've used it ever since.
Awesome. How do you choose guests and topics? You get your inbox going and whatnot. What kind of catches your attention?
Okay, so that is a tough one for me, because that changes over time, right? Like, it's going to start with you asking everybody, because no one knows you exist, right? So, like, you're asking friends and family, and you really start with that. And people that, if you like storytelling, you probably remembered people's stories from your past. So you have them come on and share those stories, right? I know I did that. And it turns into people lining up to come on. Like, once, I'd say for me, it was like the 2-year mark. That's when people started asking to come on. And I'm not like, I'm like a people pleaser. So, like, I never knew how to handle that very well. I'm just being honest. So I'd say whoever bugs me the most gets on. I'm projected out till I project 6 months out, and I don't take anyone until I clear that 6 months, and then I'll project again, because it just gets too much after 6 months. That's a ridiculous amount of time to plan something, I think. So I'm booked like right now till August, and I said that's enough. But I make sure that I leave room for in-person podcasts. So I talk to someone once every 2 weeks. And I leave that week in between in case I can meet up with someone in person, because that's my favorite type of podcast interview to have, is in person. And I go to Black Rifle, like you've seen, and host them there. And then when you come here, we can, replicate that and have one in person. So
Absolutely.
I'd say the guest, it's a lot of people who I know had incredible stories, and I know they had not really shared those stories. Like, they might have just told me and a few other people. And I know, like, people need to hear these stories. Like, who's coming to mind right now is Jeremy Rutherford, who is my fellow honor guardsman, who went through a ton of traumatic stuff, and no one really knows that. And he's such an amazing guy. He's borderline a genius, such an intriguing guy. And I'm like, man, you got to share that story, man. Like, you're just such an incredible dude. Your story would touch so many people. And it did. It really did. And since that story had a lot to do with his family, like, it made his family like really emotional, and they had some healthy dialogue because he was able to talk about those things. Specifically with him, it was losing his best friend and his brother, his biological little brother, to suicide when they were going to take on the world together, you know, and they lived together and they were going to do everything together. And then he came home and he was gone. And how do you move on from that? You know, like your whole life is turned upside down now. Everything you imagined is gone. How do you move on? And I thought people needed to hear that. But yeah,
I think that's like the exact purpose.
I have ADHD. So again, if you bug me enough, you'll get on.
Yeah, I think that's like the whole purpose behind, you know, this show and whatnot, is trying to be able to connect with people like we had talked about, because you don't want to go to someone that's been perfect or has never had any experiences and things when you're in those low times. You want to find somebody, you know, you don't want to hear that it'll be okay, this too shall pass. Like, you know, the best chance I think you have of connecting is someone that has been through something similar. Not, you know, no one's going to ever have gone through the exact same thing. But like, if you're in that low, real dark spot, like, I think the best chance you have at a connection is going to be probably someone that's been through. So getting that story out is super important. So that's good stuff.
Everyone who asked to come on, I will say, always has some crazy, unique. It's like most of mine, I have no idea. I've never even talked to that person in my life. That when you see the episode, that is the first time I've ever talked to him. And I only go off 3 topics. So sometimes it's so vague, I don't even know where the conversation's going. But I feel like it makes for a good conversation because I'm a curious person who loves asking questions. And so, you know, me not knowing ahead of time almost makes it better because of the types of questions I'll ask.
That's good stuff. As a fellow podcaster, what have been some of your most rewarding experiences so far? It's tough, right?
Yeah, it is tough. I'd say a couple of the really cool ones that I'm just super thankful for. I would say, like, you meet certain people that really appreciate what you do. And when you link up with them finally, like, they will make magic happen in your life. And for me, that person was Kate Hewlett. I gave her a 3-part series because she has an incredible story and has just had my back like no other. But through her friendship, I was able to interview Lieutenant General Slife, who's going to be the next Vice Chief of Staff of the Air Force, a 3-star general who's active duty, who came on my podcast. Like, that's insane to me. You know, just knowing how I started in the adversity that I had and the people trying to stop me and threaten me, to a 3-star general sitting right across from me in person was surreal. But I'm so thankful that, you know, that happened, because, like, I was thinking, like, first of all, if we could figure out how much he gets paid an hour, how much would I owe him for that? You know what I mean? $1,000?
$800? Yeah, probably $800 at least. Wow, that's crazy. An hour.
But I was thinking, I never in my life thought I could sit down with a general and have a 1-hour transparent and candid discussion. Never in my life did I think that would happen. And how many people get to know, like, when he becomes the Vice Chief of Staff of the Air Force, potentially, now people are going to know who he is as a person. Like, how unique is that? You know what I mean? They're taking a normal person like me, who's going to ask the same questions you would ask and what you're curious about. And now thousands of people are going to know what he's all about. And I just thought, man, that is a really cool concept. Like, not only I get to have a conversation with him, but thousands of other people do too. And now we know who's leading us. Now we know what he's all about. You know, I thought that was just so unique. And I'd say another one is just the messages I get that I don't often share. I get a lot of messages about people that felt alone, people that, you know, wanted to end their life, or people that thought they were the only one that experienced a certain problem, hit me up and just say thank you. And I'm just like, wow. It's crazy when someone tells you the impact that conversation had on their life. That will never get old to me. That will always be super special to me. And the other special thing I will say is just the friendships that you make through the journey. You know, now me and you are always going to be linked up from this point on, because we've had a conversation. Like, it just widens your circle to incredible people that you otherwise would have never ran into or spoken to, but now you have them in your life.
Yeah, that's awesome. I can't imagine those thank you notes. Like if you're having a rough morning, you haven't got your coffee yet, you're not feeling like you're having a good day, and then you get a thank you, like that day is just automatically awesome. Maybe that week, maybe, that month. That's awesome. I do want to ask a question kind of in light of that. How do you get over the fear of starting something released publicly that people are going to criticize?
You just have to embrace yourself. Well, first of all, you should know boundaries, right? Especially if you're a uniformed service member. Like, you need to talk to someone who's done it before and be like, hey, what's worked for you and what hasn't? I think that is super important. I didn't have that, and I did make some mistakes, and I did pay for those mistakes. That did happen. This is why I stay away from comedy to this day.
It wasn't funny, I guess.
Well, that's the thing about comedy, is that it's going to piss someone off, right?
It was funny to someone, just not funny to somebody else.
If it pisses off one wrong person, that's it. That's it. That's a bad day. Okay, so I stay away from comedy. So I think it's really important to get feedback from those that are already doing it, and that's hard sometimes. Sometimes you feel intimidated. Sometimes you are too proud to do that. But the podcast community and the veteran community is they welcome you with open arms, and that's what I love about it. I'm so sick of competing in the Air Force that I love that in this setting, the more we help each other, the more we all benefit from it. And I love that. I love that it's not like, oh, I talked to this person and you didn't talk to and I got this many views. Like, no one does that. You know what I mean? Like,
just all in it together.
Yeah, we're all in it together. We all help each other. And it's such a positive thing in my life. If I'm having a bad day, I can always hop on here and it would just cheer me right up. I forgot what you asked, though. What did you ask?
I asked, how do you deal with, kind of opening yourself up? Like at the beginning, right. I mean, you're a couple of years in now, but at the beginning, were you worried, like this thing is going out to the internet? That is out there. And do you check the comments or do you just let it ride?
Well, here's the thing. You can outlast those haters. They gave up. Bro, after 2 years... They gave up. I don't see it anymore. I know I hear about it through, hey, I talked to this guy and he thought this was dumb that you did that. I hear that occasionally, but like the negative comments or people yelling at me or what, I don't see it anymore because they realize it's not going to work. So you can outlast the adversity. They will get tired and they will give up because you're not going anywhere. And also that's like 1%, right? Like everyone's going to be on board with your positive message. That's the reality. Those few people, who cares? That's a very small percentage of people in your circle, right? Most will support you. And I will say going through Honor Guard is ultimately what made me comfortable with being a podcaster because, we had 7 active duty funerals. So that's a very unexpected passing of a service member when that happens. They're active duty at the time, and you're handing the flag to children, to their spouse, to their parents. You're giving the message of condolence. But oftentimes you have to stand there at attention and hear their whole life talked about. You're standing there for over an hour, just hearing person after person speak about this service member. Meanwhile, you're feet away from the family, having the worst moment of their life, crying the whole time, bawling their eyes out. And I remember thinking in a few of those moments, it's so intense that I almost feel like if I take one step, I'm going to pass out. It is that intense of an environment. And I remember thinking, man, if I can just emotionally get through this, if I can give this person this flag, give the message of condolence, and give them the best Honor Guard service that they'll remember forever. If I can do that, then I can do literally anything. Nothing will be harder than this right now. Nothing. And that's the truth. After being comfortable, being able to be there for those people in their darkest times, and to do that and not let it break me, I feel like nothing can really shake me after that. Like, I got through it. I challenged myself. I was there for people in their darkest hour. I got some more gray hair for it. absolutely. But I'm a better person because of that experience.
That's awesome. I want to back up and touch on one thing. Really reminded me of Todd Simmons. He was my command chief at Edwards alongside General Tyker. It's now retired, or I guess they're both retired. But he sponsored, right, the influencers to go to AFSA and be able to do that. And so that's a good example. It's kind of backing up to your previous thought. But that thought of, if we do good stuff, we can do it together. I really have a hard time grasping the like stepping on others to rise yourself up. A lot of times, if we come together, we do better than we ever could have alone. So I love that you brought that up. And so I had to foot stomp that. We're better together.
Definitely. And I'll tell you a benefit of that AFSA experience where we all came together was that we all realized, or at least I did, I realized that we're all totally different, right? Which is great. Because now, like, how wide is that net? It's huge. Like, if you think I'm a nerd and you don't want to hear what I have to say, you might want to go to the Shadows podcast and you think Trip Bodenheimer is the man, right? Like, at least if they don't like one of us, they'll probably like another. Like, the amount of variety was tremendous. We were all just so different. And I think that's the point Todd was trying to make, Look how different they are, but look at them when they're together. Look at how strong that force is. And that, to me, a lot of people said that was the highlight of their whole AFSA experience, was meeting us and being able to talk to us and be interviewed, and the positivity and the conversations. And it was exciting. It was really exciting. And a lot of people said that was the highlight of their whole trip.
That's awesome. Good stuff, Todd. Number one command chief in my book. But
yeah.
having the 2022 Veteran Podcast of the Year, what advice do you have for someone who is interested in starting their own? There it is.
Wow.
It kind of plays into what you were just talking about. How does someone find their unique voice and audience?
So for me personally, it was being comfortable in my own skin and realizing that I have to work for that, right? Anyone that you meet in your life who's like, man, that person's just them. They're just them. They're comfortable. Nothing's bothering them. I wish I had confidence like that. How do they do that? Well, a lot of them, at least if they're not delusional, had to work for that, and they respect themselves, right? They've earned respect for themselves. I told you I used to hate myself. Back at that time, I couldn't have a conversation like this. I'd be stuttering. I'd have shortness of breath. I'd be downright terrified. I could not talk to people, period, dot. I had a stutter and everything. Like, you think I have asthma. People thought I had asthma. I actually told them I did because I was so embarrassed that I was that anxious. It's true. It was that bad, but it was from all those bad habits and never, ever getting out of my comfort zone or doing anything unless I was drunk. Like, if I was drinking, okay, now I'll talk to that person or do that. And then when you don't have that, you're a mess. Like, you don't know who you are. So, you have to do it at a time in your life where you're comfortable with yourself. That's my opinion. I mean, if you're comfortable in your own skin and you've made progress in your own life and you feel like that could value someone else, I feel like that would be a really good time to start if mental health is a focus of the podcast.
Yeah. And another thing, I would argue that having some nervousness is important. I really wanted to interview Chief Woods. He's a big personality. He's a fun guy. And I was nervous. I wasn't sure if I could do it. And he was leaving that week. He got this short notice assignment. And he's like, I'm out of here. And so I hit him up on Facebook because he's a super cool dude and so cool. He even runs his own Facebook for the command chief page and whatnot, which I thought was cool. Not the execs, but him. And I was like, can I get in there? And he's like, can you be here basically now? So I fly in, I set all my stuff up in the wing building. I've never set up outside of my house before. And I'm puffing because I'm like grabbing stuff and I'm completely freaked out because it's like my second or third one. And I'll probably always remember, he said, if it wasn't important to you, you would not care. you're nervous and you're short of breath because this is important to you and it's something that matters. And so you should have a little bit of, I mean, not that you need to act like you got asthma, but
yeah,
maybe that's a little too extreme. But I think a little bit of that is care. If not, just wing it, don't do very good. Don't be professional. But I think there should be a little bit. I mean, I'm nervous. I'm here with you, and I was like, oh, I'm talking to Josh today, HeroFront. This is big. But yeah, you just got to get in there and get after it. So
yeah, I'll say doing it over and over again. Obviously, that helps. But I'll say preparation, that's huge, right? Like if my favorite thing to do, honestly, is if you did a podcast before as a guest, I will listen to that a few times before I talk to you, because now I know like your cues. I know how to ask a different question that wasn't already asked. Like if you feel prepared in yourself and with the guest, then it's going to be a much easier experience for you. Just trying to wing it, though, sometimes that doesn't work out.
Yeah, definitely. That's definitely true. So I got one last question for you. Looking ahead, I think you kind of touched on this on LinkedIn a little bit, but what are your future plans and aspirations? What do you got going on for the podcast?
So you're not picking up on it right now because, I'm in podcast mode right now and I'm talking to you and you put me in a great mood. But I've been bummed out lately. I'm not going to lie because I was so close to being a podcaster for the Air Force. I was going to be a part of the resiliency office at the Pentagon. So many people, including the office itself, wanted this to happen. Okay. And, for me, I grew up a problem child. My parents were divorced. No one had faith in me. I was like an underdog my whole life. My dad worked at the Pentagon at the end of his career. I was there on 9/11. I saw the Pentagon, I lived in that area. So, spiritually, it was like, if I could end there at this building that I never thought I was worthy for, that no one ever thought that I would ever reach because they thought I was some problem child. And my dad worked there. I just, spiritually, it just meant so much to me. But to also take everything I've ever learned and help the entire Air Force with that message and empower people with all the ideas I have, the conversations I've had, the multiple careers I've had. And I could leave pouring all that. I would have left it all on the field and I would have just rode off into the sunset after that, just feeling so accomplished, such an amazing ending to my career. And I was convinced it was going to happen. I mean, even at AFSA, I got to talk to every power player, I could. And I've never asked for anything in my career, but I thought this was worth it. I thought this needed I needed to know I did everything I could to secure this spot. But because of the way the system's set up, no matter how they felt about it or how much they tried or who they talked to, it couldn't happen. It just could not happen. And someone completely at random will be sitting in that chair.
Oh,
yeah. It came down to
legal thing. What is that?
The way the position was designed was not ideal for handpicking someone. The way the position was designed ended up coming down to who had the most time on station out of all the applicants. So whoever's been at their base the longest was going to get put in that hot seat. And even when I found that out, I even tried to tell them about that. Like, hey, I talked to her mentor, this is not going to happen because of this. They could not make it happen as much as they wanted it to. It couldn't figure it out. And we were on a time crunch because by the time they pick someone, it's over. And AFPC picked it. You couldn't believe how I felt when I logged in and saw denied, it used to say pending. And then it said denied, and I've just been crushed from that. I'm having to rethink my whole future now because I was so set on doing that. I felt like God was pointing me to that. With everything I've been through, I thought that was the sign. This was the door I was supposed to go through. And for it to close, I'm kind of just left wondering what the hell I'm going to do with my life now. And so I'm back. You saw me back on LinkedIn, hey... I'm a free agent again. What's up? What's out there? So professionally, I want to do something that's meaningful. I want to do something that has a lot of purpose and a place where I can exercise all of my unique talents that bring me joy to even be able to exercise. In my current situation, I can't exercise anything I enjoy. I'm in management. It's stats, it's slides, it's Excel spreadsheets. It's nothing that I want to do forever. So professionally, I hope wherever I land, it's full of purpose. I'm exercising my strengths and it's bringing me joy. Podcast wise, I just want to keep taking those baby steps. I'm going to take baby step after baby step after baby step. And with the positive messages, the incredible people I talk to, the incredible stories and connections that are getting out there, I want to grow that as large as I possibly can, because it's the most fun, amazing, and purposeful experience I've ever had in my life.
It's a blast. A lot of work in the background, but it's a great time. Finally, what message or takeaway do you hope listeners will take from today's podcast?
I think what they should take is, because when I won that 12 Outstanding Airman of the Year award, people were talking to me like, "Oh, you did everything right. Like, why should I listen to you? Like, you've never been through hard times." And, of course, my story. So that kind of made me like, really, dude? So I hope the one thing they take away would be anyone could make something of themselves. We all have it in us. We all have it in us, because I was a person who wanted to die, who almost died, who had nothing, no money, no friendships, no school, just debt and depression and bad habits. And that person who should be buried right now somehow is now living his best life through a lot of hard work and a lot of baby steps. And if anyone ever wants to talk to me about that one-on-one, please put them in touch with me. But the message would be, no matter where you're at in life, you still have time to turn it around. I turned my whole life around in 1 year. I thought that was impossible, but when I look back, my whole life changed in 1 year of positive decisions. 1 year, everything changed. So don't doubt what you can do in 1 year.
That's awesome. Yeah, I always try to push that out too. I know, I've been through a divorce and, try to share custody of my daughter. My dad passed away and my grandma passed away and all these things, and I would never want this crappy situation to not be used for good. If it sucks and I don't use it or get to connect with somebody or, use it for some type of good, then it just sucked to suck. That's not any fun. If it sucked, I hope at some later point, not to compare or anything like that to anyone else, but to just be there and have the empathy and the connection to be like, yeah, something happened. It wasn't good, but I'll be here for you. I mean, that's what makes the bad times, worth it. If not, what was the point of having a bad time? So that's absolutely true.
Yeah, man, you need to talk to David Nordell. He has that exact same philosophy. You have a story, even if it's negative, like it's your responsibility to use that to help someone else. Like that's he wrote a whole book around that philosophy. So
that's awesome.
Man.
I'll have to check it out.
Absolutely.
Well, I encourage listeners to get out there, share their thoughts. Let me know how it is. Let me know feedback, improvements. Hit me up on social media or email. Let me know if you want to talk to Josh or figure out some other stuff. But thank you much for coming out, Josh. I appreciate you a lot for more than just this episode. And we'll get the links and everything posted for yours and mine. And I just want to say I love you all. Anything else, Josh?
Yeah, last thing I want to say is Nate, you have blown me away with your story, what you've been through, and how you reached out to me, and then seeing you actually doing it now. And I know how much joy that's going to bring you and so many people that listen. And I just want to give you a shout out and just say I'm insanely proud of you. I know what it takes to start something like this. And I'm just super excited to see what you do with it and where it goes.
Sounds good. Well, have a good night.
Yeah, you too, man.
See you.